just a minute until ready. Okay, all right, roll them. We'll call to order our special meeting of the Public Art Commission. So let's first do the roll. Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner Miyagi.
In body only, my mind's out there
Uh-oh.
Commissioner Silverstein.
Present.
And Commissioner Zelka.
Present.
And Mr. McDowell, present. Okay. Any requests for changes or additions to the agenda? Nope. Okay. And oral communications, do we have any? No. All right. All right, so our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last special meeting on the 21st of May.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, we are approved.
Mila, that was you second?
Yes. Do we need to vote?
And then...
Oh, yes. All in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Just forget that voting part. That's important, isn't it?
Details.
All right, thank you. So we have our financial report, which we're...
Excuse me.
Oh, I beg your pardon?
The second set of minutes.
The second, we have two.
Mm-hmm.
Did we didn't approve the last ones from last time?
It was a special meeting.
Okay. So we need to go through the approval of minutes. A second one okay. So we've done
For the May 27th.
For the May
special.
27th. Okay.
I have a correction.
You have a correction. All right.
At the end, it was Mayor Holman, not Mayor Shepherd.
Good catch.
That is a good one. Someone's paying attention. I like
If you're
that.
changing
Very
things,
good.
my last name is wrong
Oh.
and spelled wrong. So
Uh-oh.
you can just use Silverstein. There's no A in Olmsted. Actually, I
It's
see
not
it.
the park designer.
He spells it the same way. No A.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
We're gonna have to add an
it's common.
We'll remove it.
Yeah, I see it now
And Silverstein.
in other places. Sorry.
A. Any other catches there from this close reading?
Okay.
All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes from the 21st.
So moved.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think I abstained because I wasn't there.
Okay.
One abstention.
Okay. Now that the approval of minutes is complete for those two meetings, we'll move to the financial report, and which we're doing now on a quarterly basis.
We have...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
You have
Oh, that's right, because I switched agendas. Apologies, give me just a second. So on the financial report, and since we will be allocating some funds, this will be helpful. With the beginning of the new fiscal year, as you look at the Art and Public Places CIP, as opposed to the municipal, you'll see the carry forward from the previous year, the $50,000 allocation, which gives us a current budget of a little over $159,000. And then you see below there's a column of commitments. Those are funds that are committed in a contract but not yet spent. As they get spent, they will move above under actual costs, which currently has 0 for this fiscal year. So that leaves the commission with a little over $87,000. And then you see PAC approved future projects. So those are funds that have been earmarked in the amount of $40,000. So that leaves CIP available budget, assuming the approved future projects take place, of a little over $47,000. And that's in the CIP budget. Are there any questions on that one? Okay. So if you flip that over, for the municipal budget, and this is the funds for % for art in municipal projects. So the carry forward last year is we still have $30,000 remaining in that kitty. This year, if you recall, we did make some changes to how the % for art in municipal projects was determined, and that the funds those funds are all transferred to us as opposed to having many of them remain with the project. So it does net a larger number. So this year it was $159,000, which leaves us with $189,000 in the available municipal budget. And there are a couple of approved future projects which the commission has earmarked funds for, one of them being the artist-led engagement, which is a later agenda item, which I will get into then. Are there any questions on the municipal percent for art budget? Okay.
One quick, the golf course. How's
Yes.
that coming along?
That one has been on hold because the project has had difficulty getting their permits, and a lot of the funding is dependent on them getting permits. So we're on
Okay.
hold until we're sure it's moving.
All right.
One other point of clarification. So given we're on a new structure where things are not tied to projects, they just sort of, once something is approved, it's moved here, is the scale of where we are in aggregate about the same? Is it, do we have more going on this year, less going on this year than the previous year?
Well, we're accruing more funding simply because when we change the policy and the ordinance, more projects are captured in that. So
Okay.
it does amount in more funding available for public art this year than was allocated in previous years. And
So it's a matter
it's
of
being moved.
capturing things that should, so things that should have been captured perhaps before we modified the process aren't now being captured. And so,
Correct.
Okay. It's good we made the change.
So because the funds were with the project,
Mhm.
so public art staff would try and chase the project managers
Right.
to try and make sure that those funds were indeed allocated for public art and weren't spent on other things. And trying to initiate the project was always challenging.
Got it.
So that was one of the reasons we shifted to this, and so we have the opportunity to pool for more impactful projects, because many of the projects that contributed funds to this overall amount were in very small amounts. So it may have been $5,000 here and $8,000 there, and it doesn't make for impactful public artwork. So
Mhm.
then we can look for the correct opportunities to use those funds.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
And sorry, one other clarifying question. So is this for the adopted budget of 159,000 for, this is things that are, does this cover things that are for the whole year? So you have visibility into everything that's going to occur in fiscal year 16, and this kind of captures all of it?
Yes, this is all of the CIP projects that received funds for fiscal year 2016 that qualify
That meet the
for the
threshold.
municipal percent for art.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So we move along to staff comments.
Sure, of course. So, and we have a few visuals. So there were a number of public art master planning meetings which took place over the last few weeks. Really exciting, lots of great input. There was an artist outreach meeting July 13th in which artists were given corridors or areas to creatively enliven and engage with those spaces. They got really into the process and the visioning, giving a lot of good input and ideas to our master planners, while building some wonderful connections. There was also a community outreach meeting the morning of July 14th at Mitchell Park, and that's the image here, in which members of the community were brought up to speed on the process, saw some great examples of what is taking place in the field of public art nationally, and asked to give input regarding types of work they respond to, spaces and topics that may be appropriate for the placement of work. And there are consultants, Barbara Goldstein and Gail Goldman, and asked to share their thoughts on the future of public art. The input has been wonderful, and the consultants are hard at work compiling the feedback. I believe the overall, what's the count on the overall number of meetings we've had so far for public art, for the master plan?
Since the beginning, it's been over 50 meetings.
Yeah, so more than 50 meetings have taken place so far for the outreach. So it's been a lot of hard work and coordination, both for the consultants and for staff, to try and set all that up. And thank you to all the commissioners who have been involved helping put us in contact with various folks, and of course Commissioner Miyagi, who's been at many of those meetings as chair of that committee. The next thing we have is we had a really great event to celebrate the dedication of the Mike Sabo water sculpture. So over the course of the event, approximately 350 people stopped by to enjoy live music and a gathering to celebrate the new water sculpture by Mike Sabo at the Plaza at California Avenue and Park Boulevard. After a brief speaking program, including Vice Chair Miyagi and public art staff, artist Mike Sabo then took the mic and spoke about his experience of creating an artwork for his hometown. Then there was lively music by John Henry's Farm, and they are also a local band, and I believe one of the band members went to school with Mike, and so it was a really touching story. It was a great group, and there were lots of people who stopped by on their way to the train and inquired if we were going to do this every Tuesday. I don't think we have the bandwidth, but it's a lovely idea, and I pass it on.
Right out here?
Yeah. So, and then the final thing I wanted to bring to your attention actually is right outside of these doors. Syed Alavi's Forgotten Languages was reinstalled the week of July 6th. The newly renovated lobby with improved lighting really helps visitors be able to read the quotes pertaining to government and justice. And so here you see one of our crew members, Keith, who you don't get to see very often, but he moves a lot of our work and helps us quite a bit. We had a lot of assistance from various departments to get all that equipment in there. But the challenge with the piece previously was because there was no uplighting and there were more canisters behind the artworks, you couldn't actually read the text very well. And so it is much easier to see now with the new installation. And we do have a new plaque with all of the quotes that were chosen that will go back on the wall.
Is it lower too? It looks like it's...
We had to hang it at the exact same
okay.
contact points because there were all these challenges with just not being able to move the hardware.
Because when I first was coming here for meetings, I didn't even know that was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably 3 or 4 more months down the line before I even knew that something was up there. It's great.
And that's it for staff comments.
One
Are we
comment-
getting close here with our display? It's good. How far away are we now from lighting that up with content? Sorry,
We'll have to discuss that. I can bring you up to speed on that next month.
Okay, great. All right, so we have.
One quick comment. Just sitting here, I think that looks great. The whole lobby, I think, just turned out great. From what you saw with the construction going on every time you walked in here, now we've got this wonderful lobby here, and I just can't wait for this to be activated and go online and have the input there.
All right. So we have a number of action items tonight. The first of which is the approval, the voting on the artist-led outreach project. There's a packet here which we got earlier this week. Do you want to have to give some context on this one, Elise?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the master plan outreach, as we discussed earlier when we went over the budgets, the Public Art Commission has earmarked funds for that effort. This evening, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the process and the art selection and the group that is being proposed to take this on. So we would like to see the actual allocation of funds so we can get under contract with them. So the Public Art Commission had earmarked the funds to support this. So staff put out a limited invitation for conceptual proposals for this project. And there were several requirements set forth in that call. Eligible project must take place over a 3-month period from August through October 2015 with somewhat flexible timing, with a goal of producing a number of ideas that can be incorporated into the Public Art Master Plan. The proposal would need to be a high visibility project that maximizes engagement with a very diverse population, and this was very important because the intent is to engage people who are not going to come to our community meetings. And the third important piece was the artist is to provide documentation of the project and the process. And they may be asked to host a talk at the completion of their project to present the project outcomes to the public and further engage them. So 3 proposals were received and scored by a panel that included our consultant, Barbara Goldstein, Raina Halpern, who's the Director of Arts and Sciences for the city, myself, Commissioner Amanda Ross, who has been involved with this from the beginning, and Commissioner Ben Miyagi, of course, who's the chair of the Master Plan Committee. The panel met Monday, July 20th. It seems like it was longer ago than 3 days, but it was 3 days ago, to review the 3 proposals and selected Mobile Arts Platform, which is 2 artists together, Chris Tregieri and Peter Foucault, for the project. You have the proposal that was circulated to you. And so the idea is that, and this is an image of one of their previous projects, so they've done quite a few of these, and they actually have a project that's up in the Oakland Museum right now, which is pretty fascinating. But the idea is that they would have these 2 bicycles with these trailers, and out of it would fold this counter for interaction, and it would also have these LED tickers. And so the idea is that members of the community go engage with them and would share an idea. And so what they proposed was there are these sheets that say, what's the big idea? And you could share this concept, and then your idea gets approved, like with a patent stamp, and then you have your picture taken with it. And if you care to share more about it, you can go on video. So keep in mind, this is a conceptual idea, so we will work with the artists to refine how they engage the public, like what the specific questions are and how that gets led. But there were a lot of really wonderful opportunities and sort of a built-in web presence as responses go up on the ticker and can go out on Twitter. This is another printmaking cart that they've done, just to show you a little bit more about their background. They've done quite a bit of this community engagement. So the group also started putting together a list of great locations to engage various communities that we want to make sure we get involved with this. Staff is requesting that the Public Art Commission approve Mobile Arts Platform as the project artist team and authorize the allocation of $10,000 to go into a contract. So that's it for my presentation. I don't know if either Commissioners Miyagi or Ross want to speak to it since they were on the panel.
This is so high tech.
It's just on.
It's always on.
Just on, yeah. And I have to say how you can speak eloquently with Michael Jackson going on in the background. I'll just try. What was interesting was there were 3 proposals, as Elise mentioned, and they've had a series of community meetings. But this was really to try and get at populations that don't have time to organize, schedule, and come and sit for a 2-hour meeting in the city. So the notion that the locations can be decided in advance and can be anything from, Whole Foods outside at a lunchtime or Phil's Coffee. I mean, these are all like up in the air ideas, but Phil's Coffee in South Palo Alto, to get people who wouldn't otherwise, who have opinions about public art, and also not a one location that people then have to come to. It's sort of, going to be in different locations. I think that they're talking about between 10 and 15 different places, and they're going. Then also that you can walk away with an art project if you choose is also kind of a novelty. The Art Center had to close down for renovation, and they sent a truck out on the road, and it was so successful that they kept the truck, and they're still looking at places and ways to use that. So it was 3 really excellent choices, and we just thought this might be the best. We thought this would be the best for what we were really trying to solicit, which is getting people excited and getting people, involved with their ideas.
I'd agree with Amanda, and I did volunteer for the happy hour spots when they go there, so just keep that in mind. The other 2 projects were very good projects as well, and further down the line, I think they may be able to be used. The one thing I like about this, when we talk about diversity, you also have to consider age. So it's an opportunity for families to get involved as well with young kids. So that was a great part about it. And even if you're just walking by for a couple of minutes, you can contribute something. So that's the great thing about this. And the locations like like right out here, we could have one tonight. So it's stuff like that we just have the opportunity now where the art goes to the people, and the people don't have to go to the art to participate. So that's the great thing I like about this. And I think it's going to be a great project, short duration, which is good too. So, and one other thing that I thought about too is maybe with the Susan Arduli project here, we could have some sort of a collaboration between the two, where people could also input stuff here, not just their thoughts, but maybe we could post a question about public art, and maybe people can answer that as well. So plenty of opportunities. I think this is a great project.
So I had a couple just quick questions. So what is the plan for, as it's described here or that you've talked about, for taking the input that we get and actually using it for something as opposed to it just being PR? And the second is, how many actual sessions will we plan on doing? Like, how much time will they be in the field?
Those are all things we're refining with them. So we have a meeting scheduled with them the first few days of August to sit down and hammer that out. But because the setup is quite extensive, my guess is we are looking at between 10 and 15 different setups. And so we'll push for as many as we can get. And I'm sorry, your first part of your question.
So
I lost track.
So they're going to be getting people's input and ideas. How has that worked for converting whatever we hear? I mean, it'll generate goodwill, but I'm kind of wondering about
right.
What do we do with the information we get?
So that's part of what the Barbara Goldstein and I would work with them to craft what that message is. But even if you left it as wide open as what's the big idea, and you see them do that in a lot of the community master planning meetings, it's not asking necessarily what do you like in public art, but you're teasing out places that are special about Palo Alto.
Okay.
What are the priorities? Do people want things that are more meditative or techie, or what is it that people are looking for? What are they getting at with that input? So rather than having sort of a questionnaire asking very pointed questions, letting people think about what would make them happy. What's their grand idea? Does it have to do with transportation? Does it have to do with more open green space? Or, so that's really why the master planners do what they do, because they synthesize a lot of that input to create their recommendations.
And Barbara and Gail have done this stuff before, so they really know how to take that data and really then incorporate it into the master plan.
I have some thoughts on location just based on the limited information that was in the one-pager. Would it be appropriate for me to make those suggestions?
Of course. I mean, we're having that discussion now, so if any of you have recommendations or suggestions, I'm happy to take them forward.
Well, it sounds like there's been like a huge range of really fun, refreshing ways of thinking about where people are gathering in town. Thinking about the joint study session we had with council, I definitely think that it would be great to incorporate a youth voice with this, perhaps going to the actual high schools, thinking about libraries, dream catchers, which are middle schoolers that are, they're actually at Palo after school, and even thinking about, the time of year that this will be happening. There'll be harvest festivals and that sort of thing happening at many of the elementary schools. So, or thinking about the choice schools that are larger and draw from all over town. On thinking of older folks in our community, Avenidas, Channing House, Stevenson House. And then also places where families go, like farmers markets, the Opportunity Center. There's about 105 people that come there every day. Mitchell Park Dog Run. I know my family is there often. And also the Moonlight Run, which the weekly hosts. That's September 25th, I think.
Yeah.
And so that might be really neat, especially with the LED ticker to happen at night. And that's all ages. So those were just some things that, not being part of the search discussion, wanted to throw that out. And with downtown, thinking about different times of the day, we have different populations who are here. So.
Excellent, thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we vote? So do we have a move to approve the budget allocations?
I move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Our second item of business is temporary public art. So this should be exciting. Looking forward to hearing all about this one. And I just say that when my kids heard about the ball pit idea, they went crazy. They couldn't believe it.
I like that idea too.
Okay. So, temporary public art on King Plaza. So, there's been a lot of support from the community, from the city manager's office, to have more rotating, vibrant, temporary public art installations on King Plaza. We've been talking about having signage out on the plaza that talks about why it's important to have a diversity of artworks out there and rotating on a regular basis. So based on that input, we did put out a call for artworks that are, ready to roll, that could go for a budget of $5,000. We also had a limited invitation to some artists, potentially thinking about a $10,000 option. And some of the artists one of them in particular who I would like to recommend, actually responded at the $5,000 level, but could do something much more impactful at the $10,000 level. So I've come with a variety of styles and options. What happened with the responses to that temporary call is many of them were not feasible for this actual location. The call was for temporary installation throughout Palo Alto. So the great news is we have a robust library of potential pieces for everywhere, but because I was looking at King Plaza in particular, there are some very strict regulations about weights, loads, not being able to bolt into the surface, and clearly it would have to be able to withstand late night shenanigans as people are working their way out of Reposado. So the first one I would like to recommend, there's a series of ring sculptures by Bruce Beasley. I'm not sure how many of you have gone out to his studio when we've done that. Do we need to arrange another visit? I think we've had a changeover. So his studio in Oakland is incredible, and he has just bequeathed that to it's a promise gift to the Oakland Museum. So his sculpture gardens and his studio, it'll become sort of a working sculpture studio, as well as sort of more museum grounds. But there were a series of these sculptures that I guess they're still currently at UC Berkeley. This one is the one he was thinking would be great for Palo Alto. It really plays with the round circular geometry of the patterning in the plaza, and sort of fits with the new clean renovation of the building. It seemed like a clean way to kick things off. And so he could be ready to put that in September when he pulls the other one out of Berkeley. The next recommendation I have would actually could run simultaneously with the end of the Beasley. So this is a piece I actually saw at the Market Street Prototyping Festival. I don't know if any of you all made it to that. It was amazing. They had a call for people to make prototype projects that were installed for blocks up and down Market Street. And this was a piece called Chime. And what actually happens is each of those wood sections, people were pushing on both sides of them, so all you see are these subtly undulating pieces of wood, and there are chimes mounted on the inside. And it was so meditative and beautiful. But I was uncertain that it would necessarily carry the plaza on its own, but in the summertime, having that amongst the trees might be a really interesting and fun interaction for people. Go ahead. And then this is the third project, which could be installed next summer after Chime and Beasley are gone. George Zisiadis, who prides himself on doing things that are fun. And that is something I've heard over and over again, both from the commissioners and the public, is we want something that's fun. So we approached George Zisiadis, who is sort of prides himself on this. And so this is the area he's looking at. And he wants to create an adult scale ball pit, basically out of those medicine balls of all different scales, and they would be netted together within one of these sections of trees. So this is his concept idea. He is not available to do it right now, and I believe that we need to get him to make a prototype to make sure it is feasible before we initiate it. So that's why I was thinking he might be more appropriate to install next summer through the fall. It is not something that would weather long-term very well, so I'm thinking that would probably be a 3 to 4 month installation. And then Aaron Lee Benson is somebody, and this is not the actual piece he's proposing, this just gives you a sample of what he does. He builds these sculptures with 2x4s that appear to just be stacked. They are all bolted together, so it is one solid piece. But he creates these environments. Sometimes they incorporate little seating areas and benches and little alcoves. The walls would be opened up a little bit so you could see if someone was on the other side. But one of the interesting things about him is he really likes to work with members of the community who want to come out and help him work on it. So he was talking about having something that might spiral through the trees and then come out a little bit onto the lobby, but he's interested in working with the community on it. And what he does with the piece at the end of it is the wood all gets donated to Habitat for Humanity. So it is time limited on how long it can be out. Not only will the wood start to gray a little bit over time, but there's a point at which Habitat for Humanity won't accept it for one of their projects. But he seemed like an interesting artist to work with. And so this is the calendar I was looking at. So it would start with Beasley. Chime would overlap during the summertime. And then we would have George Zisiadis come in with the ball pit, and then have Benson come in. And I haven't gone much beyond that. We do have other ideas, and we have some alternates, which I am happy to show you here. I just want to clarify that while we're in the process of the master plan and trying to figure out the priorities, we're starting relatively modestly with the budget for King Plaza until we have that master plan and the priorities in place. I think once we get further down this line, we'll have a clearer picture of if King Plaza is a priority and the commission wants to allocate more funding for larger, more impactful projects, that may absolutely be an answer. If the feedback we get back is, no, the community-wide wants more projects and that we should spread it out, that may be appropriate. So I just wanted to frame it in this way that we're starting modest. We don't know exactly what the future holds, but we do have some ambitious ideas about places we would like to go should funding open up. So I wanted to show you a couple of the alternate pieces. Lori Nozick, who is an artist who sources building parts and construction pieces from members of the community and builds these glass houses. And they all incorporate lights and color, and these stairwells. I felt like her use of wood was a little too close to Benson's, and I do have concerns about safety, so we would have to navigate that should she come available, but that is someone I was looking at, so I just wanted to share some of the other concepts we were vetting. This is a piece called Hobbs Claw, which came in, so it could be installed anywhere. I kind of liked the idea of having the juxtaposition of the beautifully crafted wood on the hardscape, but that's one that could be available. And the Truth Booth, I don't know how many of you have seen this. Are any of you familiar with the Truth Booth? So the Truth Booth, we will hopefully find the right opportunity to bring the Truth Booth here, is a temporary inflatable room. And inside there is a camera and a bench, and it has traveled all over the world. So they have had in different languages the word truth on it, and it has been set literally all over the globe. And you have 2 minutes, and you start with the prompt, "The truth is," and then just go. And so they've collected these videos all around the world. And they said, some of what they have captured is just amazing. So I could see that being appropriate should we get involved more with like a 0-1 type festival. If it's a weekend type environment, it really is a very temporary installation. But that we're exploring those kinds of options. This is a project that just took place last year. It is a 1 mile long community meal table, and the artist designed the placemats. It was all very carefully choreographed with servers and whatnot, but it was a 1 mile long community meal, and the participants were just overwhelmed with how powerful it was to go take over a street and break bread with your community. It would be wonderful to find some sort of equivalent project to do here when we talk about bringing our community together. And Jin Lewin, the pool, this is a series of discs that all interact as you step on them. There's also a way with an iPad that someone else can manipulate all the lights as it goes around. Again, this would be something that would be very temporary. These are higher budget kinds of projects that are very temporary, but these are the kinds of things that we're thinking we could work up to in the future. So we are starting modestly, but I did want to share some of the other things that we're looking at and looking toward. So at this point, what staff is requesting this evening is to get input on the overall timeline for King Plaza and to approve the funding for the Beasley piece, which would be $10,000. The Chime piece, which would be up to $5,000. It's a weekly rental. We would have to see how it weathers. And a stipend to create a prototype for the ball pit in the amount of $1,500 for a total not to exceed $16,500. So at this point, it would just be the Beasley and the Chime piece and the prototype.
And can you clarify the timing for having the Beasley is essentially 9 months? Am I reading that right?
It would be about a year.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
How tall? What's the scale on that Beasley? I mean, I saw the people in it, but do you actually know the dimensions of it?
It is, I have them. It is 17 by 18 by 12 feet tall. 17 by 18 by 12 feet tall. It is a substantial piece, but it will fit between the flagpoles.
My one concern about the Benson piece starting in December, especially if it's going to be wood for Habitat for Humanity with rain, it could really warp the wood as it gets wet and dries out. So maybe later in spring through summer to have something like that, where, especially if it's going to be wood that's donated to Habitat, which I think is a great idea. But you want to have the wood in good condition, because as you were saying, there's a point where they won't accept the wood.
He's done these installations where they've been up for just over a year, and they have withstood rain, snow, and whatnot, and been accepted by Habitat. But we would absolutely check all of that out to make sure.
Does he waterproof the wood or something?
I'm not sure how he treats the wood, but I can check in on that.
Because I think that would be a consideration. That, we have this wonderful wood, and then it's not usable. It's firewood then after that.
Right.
And so Beasley would be, so for part of it, so summer, as you pointed out, we would do Chime on a week-by-week basis and kind of see how it goes. But for some period of time, we'd have 2 pieces installed. And the scale, and how big is Chime? Is it like 10 feet by, just sort of, what are the dimensions?
Chime is about, I don't have the exact dimensions on me for that one. Chime is about 7 feet tall and maybe 12 feet long. So it would fit nestled in one of these tree areas is what I was imagining.
And is it apparent to someone as you walk by that you'd know to come and play with it?
Yes, naturally. I mean, I watched people interact with it all day, and people just automatically go, they want to rub it. The exterior wood is actually quite beautiful.
Okay.
And I can forward a video about the piece so you can hear it and hear more about the artist who actually is an MFA student in music at Mills, who started doing this, and they are actually developing other community instruments. So they prototyped something that was on display in Oakland, I think a couple weeks ago. They just sent me something. So now they're really getting into this idea of musical instruments that many people can play at the same time, and creates that interaction.
How robust was that when you saw it up in San Francisco?
I mean, kids were
Okay.
rocking it hard. So
Yeah, I mean, after 3 or 4 months after it getting pounded on.
That's why it's a weekly fee. They
okay.
would come check on it and tune it regularly
Okay.
to make sure that it doesn't fall into disrepair.
Okay, good. Right.
And so $10,000 for Beasley, up to $5,000 for Chime, and then $1,500 for the prototype study for how do you say his last name? Zisiadis?
George Zisiadis.
And that includes, so they're incurring, they're insuring and they're transporting. It's sort of all inclusive. Here's your stipend, and then you cover your own insurance, any maintenance, and transportation. And it's like,
So it's the 5,000. The call was put out there as all inclusive. Bruce Beasley is big enough. He has an insurance that is not a hardship. What we are able to offer artists a lot of the time is we are able to cover them under our insurance for a minimal additional cost. And so usually, if it's a hardship on the artist, we'll just take it on and cover them.
okay. I have one other question about the Beasley, because I see kids climbing around on it. Are there any concerns that you have about liability for the city? If it's a public piece and someone, I guess it's equivalent to a playground, someone hurts themselves, is the area that you're citing, is it going to be above grass like this one?
We haven't done exact siting for it. We wanted to get the commission's approval before we go through exact siting, but I suspect it would be out on the hardscape of the plaza.
Okay.
As with anything else you place in public space,
Yeah.
you put a do not climb on it, but people climb sculptures throughout the city. There's not much avoiding it, so
Okay.
that's something we'll have to take up.
Right, okay. Other questions?
I just wanted to say that I'm so happy to see some forethought about the plaza, and I think that the selections are really good. I would just share that going forward in terms of what you're looking at, it's my personal opinion to think that something more impactful, i.e. like the lighting, for a shorter duration is preferable to covering and making sure something's always on King Plaza for a length of time. So
Right.
I would rather see the money spent for the bigger, and not even expensive, just more impactful, different, surprising for a shorter duration than something cheaper that we
Right.
can have for the whole year. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's like a dream also to throw our names into the hat, so to speak, of Palo Alto being kind of on a rotation of work that might be in Helsinki and then might go to Singapore, and then it's going to land for a period of time in Palo Alto, and it could be a great space here. So yeah, that's all. Thanks.
One other thing about the Beasley piece, being metal on a very hot day, touchability, is that going to be a problem too? So
I can check in with him on that because they've been on exhibit for over a year in Berkeley.
they can coat it with stuff too, I think, that would,
And
would
usually-
help that, mitigate that.
And usually the lighter colored metals don't trap as much heat. It's really the darker ones
Yeah.
get really hot fast.
Yeah. Well, stainless steel just by itself could get very hot. So
It's a good thought.
Building off of Commissioner McDowell's comment, and thinking about the prototype, and this is just a miscellaneous idea, perhaps the surface is like one of those rubber surfaces that they have in children's playgrounds that, I don't know anything about the construction of it, but you know, here it's a lawn, but maybe there's some kind of a temporary installation of a more absorbent pedestrian.
For the Beasley?
For the Beasley, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Missing my noun. Yeah, thinking about the Beasley piece. And if there is like a rubber surface, like there is in some of the schoolyards here, that kind of gets echoed with the ball pit if the ball pit thing goes through. Because here you have these circular shapes, and then the following year we're picking up with, you know, more rubber balls.
Lots of circles.
Yes, lots of circles, but it might be fun to play with that.
So the initial part of this would then take us through the master plan adoption and all. And then, like you were saying, then with the master plan, then we really have a way to go forward. And this is kind of a placeholder until that happens.
That's correct. And it just, for the ball pit, it gives us a sense of if that's going to be viable. It gives us the time to really plan if that is a viable option, or if perhaps Aaron Lee Benson bumps up earlier, or, you know, how we want to navigate that.
And one other just point of clarification. So is this, out of the bucket of money that this is coming from, is this coming from our municipal 1% budget? Where does this come from?
There was, let's see, there was some allocated. So there was 10,000 allocated for temporary public art in the CIP.
Okay.
So it could certainly come out of CIP. I mean, really, it could come out of either, because Muni percent for art funds can also cover temporary public art.
Okay, so we've already covered, so we already had allocated 10, so it's really an extra $6,500 to do Chime, and, well, depending on how you allocate it.
Right.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Mila, second.
You say something? No. Okay. So third item of business is an update on the 101 Bike and Pedestrian Bridge project. And this is a non-action item.
And I wish I had more of an update to give you, but what I will give you is the news that the city, you know, is moving forward with their contract negotiation with the proposal that was selected. Do we have that up or no? And so as they're negotiating that, if you recall, the proposed art element for that project, the commission did not feel was really impactful. I think there were stamped concrete leaves within the project. So we took that back to the group. We are going to be able to launch an open call for artists to get them engaged in the process and bring them on with the design team. So we're working on that language now. And as soon as we know that the budget and the project architect is indeed on board with the contract, then we can move forward with our artist call and get them on the design team. So that's all. I just wanted to notify you that we're going to post a call soon. So it's always an exciting moment to get the word out. Are there any questions?
Well, for that, what is your budget for that then? And does that come out of our pool, or would it be part of their project?
It was allocated because this was done before we changed.
Right.
So the funds are residing with the project budget, and the budget total amount is $82,000.
So had this been done with the new system, that 82,000 would have been reflected in the 159,000 that's in the municipal.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Right, but those funds are residing with the project.
Right.
Got it.
So we still have a couple of years where we're going to have a few of these hybrid projects that have sort of kicked off, but the percent for art allocation is still residing with that budget.
Okay.
And the previous artists can submit as well?
It'll be an open call. Anyone can submit.
Okay.
I guess I would just want to say my memory is a bit foggy about all the details here, but you know, I feel like the bridge itself is lovely and it's nice. I feel like the call out to the artist doesn't necessarily have to be art that is like smacked onto the bridge in some way. I mean, there could be like the artist could come up with something that, you know, might be a gathering spot at one of the ends, or the accessibility, or something like that. Maybe I'm saying what you already know, but I'm just, you know, it's like I feel like I get frustrated when I feel like an artist's hands are tied. It's like, here you have this box, put some art in it, you know, and it's like, no, actually we have this whole bridge everybody in the community needs.
Yeah, the previous art was at one of the like coming up or going down
Was
points.
it?
It wasn't at the top of the bridge. It was like an entrance or exit, I remember.
Okay.
So
But that's the intent of the call, is that we would give some potential spots, but that it's wide open. The intent is to
Okay.
bring them onto the design team, because the details of the design are going to get refined as we go. And so you bring the
Right.
artist in to integrate with that design team and find some efficiencies. So if they're budgeting X amount for this part of the railing and the artist wants to integrate with it, you know, you can find those efficiencies if you get on sooner. So it's not just you have to deliver something to the site and clip it on our bridge, which is not what we want.
Right, but I guess what I'm also saying is it's not necessarily like the art has to enhance the design. You know, the art can stand as its exactly.
It can also be educational and interpretive. The art can be a lot of different things. Creative lighting. Yeah.
I think a clip-on art would be preferable.
Clip on art. I'm taking notes.
Yeah, let the record
I'll make
reflect.
sure that's in there.
I think the earlier you get the artists involved in the project, the better art that you'll have in the project, and better integrated into the project than pin-on art.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any announcements? All right. So our next meeting is on Thursday, the 20th of August. And we are now adjourned.
Thanks, Tim.
So when is that being next? This is a sore spot?
You said you were on happy hour duty.
I saw you. When I saw you looking at, we'll discuss that another time.
Oh, because